In this video, we are going to go through the second of the perfect tenses. And if it's not present perfect, must be, of course, past perfect. So there are two things you have to know about past perfect. One describes an action that started in the past and stopped at some other point in the past. So maybe we have 3 days ago. It's actually saying Wednesday. You did something. Dum, dum, dum. There's Thursday. There's Friday. And then something else happened after the first verb. And now I'm talking, and let's say it's Saturday. Now, this is not the most helpful thing in the world. Many teachers have drawn this before. Many books use this as well. But it will help once you actually see the sentences. But before we get there, it's important to note the had plus the participle. Present tense, if you remember, had, have, or has plus the participle. These are present tense form of the verb to have. However, now we're in past perfect, so we're going to use had plus the participle. So let's see that in action here. Starting with A, until Mary studied abroad, she had never left the United States. Okay, so we have Mary. She is studying abroad. We'll say studying abroad. This is sometime in the past. I'm talking, or the sentence, the person who's saying this is the present. This is her studying abroad. Before that, what had happened? She had never left the U.S. So never left. And we're going to call this the past past. And that's the idea of the past perfect. One event in the past happening before another event in the past. And you're describing this in the present. So again, until Mary studied abroad, sometime, let's say in 2009, she had never left the U.S. That is all the time before 2009. Let's take another look at B. I had bought a used vacuum cleaner, but returned it after it began to eat up pieces of carpet. Oh no, what a bad vacuum cleaner. So let's say Wednesday, bought the vacuum cleaner. There's my vacuum cleaner drawing. Thursday, you use it. And it eats up the carpet. There's the carpet, got eaten up. And on Saturday, you maybe go and return it. So, I had bought a used vacuum cleaner. Here's Wednesday. Had bought. What happened after that? Well, you returned it. Oops, let's actually get rid of that. Sorry. The Thursday is the returned it. After it began to eat up pieces of carpet. So we're assuming that you returned it on Thursday. Or any time after you bought it. So again, the past event happened before the other event, which is the returning. I returned it. Now notice the second event is in simple past. This is very important. Simple past. The event in the past, PP, is past perfect. And therefore you have to use the had plus the participle. The participle of by is bought. Okay, let's take a look here at a few more examples. After I had gone to the movies, event in the past, you watched the movie from 3 to 5. At 6, you go to have coffee with your friends. What did you do? I met. That's at 6 o'clock. Had coffee. I met up with friends. What happened before that event in the past is gone to the movies, which right there. I'm at the movies. I've gone to the movies. Now, sometimes when you're doing something in the past that continues on, you can also use another tense. So if you look at D, it says when you called, I had been watching TV. You can see that this is a continuous or progressive tense. And so you can sometimes mix the two together. But if the idea is you want to talk about an event in the past that is suddenly interrupted by another event in the past, then you want to use the past continuous or past progressive. Good news, we have a video on that coming up very soon. But if you want to focus on the fact that one event happened, event 1 happened and finished, then event 2 happened and finished, then you want to use past perfect. Let's look at E. By the time you called, I had finished my homework, had already finished my homework. So you can see that finished here at the bottom. It's the participle of had, and that shows that this event in the past had finished, happened at boom. stop, start, it's over. You finished at that moment. And then the second event, boom, you called. It's not a continuous event of watching TV or watching a movie. And that's when we use the past perfect. Now, to get good at this, you want to read a lot. Read novels, write a lot as well. See if you are using the correct tense. And this can be tricky, even for non-native, or even for native speakers, this is tricky, but especially for non-native speakers. But in the next few videos, you'll see a few other tenses as well, and so hopefully that will make things clearer. In this video, we are going to go through the present perfect tense. And this tense refers to something that has basically taken place in the past, but continues to the present. And so this idea of time, let's begin here with the past and the present. Whenever you have this conception of something beginning and continuing on, you are dealing with the perfect tense. The present perfect starts at some point in the past and it continues on to the present. It does not stop in the present, but it's continuing on. And again, it began at some point in the past. So that's a little bit abstract. Let's take a look here. I have lived in New York for 10 years. So here's 10 years ago. Landed at the airport in JFK, and they started living in New York, living, and now they're talking to you, and you're sitting in their apartment on Broadway and 3rd Avenue, or some fancy place in New York, and you're sitting there, so that's the present. That person has not left. You're sitting in his apartment, or her apartment, and they're telling you, I have lived in New York for 10 years. Let's take another look here. She has been a fan of Broadway musicals since she was a child. So she's a little strange-looking six-legged child, but nonetheless, she was, say, 7 years old, and she went to her first musical and continued on, and there she is today, still going to Broadway musicals, and I suppose still with 6 appendages, but still a fan. And that's the essence of present perfect, talking about something that describes someone today that happened a long time ago. Again, that's continuous, that's still going on. Now, imagine in A, if this person is now living in London, then they cannot say, I have lived in New York for 10 years. That wouldn't make sense. Or if she is no longer a fan of Broadway musicals, then it would make sense to use has been a fan. Okay, let's take a look at some other examples. I visited the bookstore yesterday. Here we have simple past. Pretty straightforward. I visited the bookstore yesterday. Now in D, it says I have visited the bookstore yesterday. That would not work. That's yesterday is an event in the past. So what do we put in the blank here? Well, we can have many different things to show that the bookstore is somewhere this person goes to and they visited it numerous times over the years, over the months. So I have visited the bookstore many times. I have visited the bookstore before. I have visited the bookstore whenever an author comes to visit. So again, you're showing a repeated action that's happened in the past, maybe happened many times in the past, and is continuing on today. It's still something that reflects the present. And that is the essence of the present perfect tense. Future perfect, which you should not confuse with the future continuous. Let's take a look. Future perfect describes an action that will be completed in the future. Unlike the future continuous, there is not an interruption. Let's have a look at some sentences here. Starting with A, I will have finished my thesis by August. We're talking about an event in the future. So this person is talking right now. It is the present. At some point in the future, they will have finished the thesis. Now, they are bounding it or limiting it a little bit because they're saying by August. So maybe July 19th. They finish. They will have finished. So they're going on, writing thesis, finish. And here is August. Or perhaps it's a little closer. The idea is they're constantly working on it, and stop by August. So we know in August they will be done with their thesis. We don't know exactly when, but it will be sometime in the future. They will be continuing to work starting in the present to some point in the future on their thesis, and therefore we want to use the future perfect. Let's look at B. Are you going to have improved your grammar before I come back for the summer? So this person is coming back for the summer. Maybe they're coming back in July. And they're talking right now. Maybe it's December. And they're leaving. But you're working on your grammar, working on your grammar, working on your grammar. And they're not saying, oh, a specific time. You're getting interrupted. When I come to see you next, will you still be studying grammar? And notice I'm using the gerund tense to show continuous, but there's no interruption here. Just some vague point in the future. Is your grammar going to be improved? Yeah, I get to this point, my grammar has improved. That is the idea of the future perfect.